Oh, hi everyone, it's Susie, Crypto Granny here. We had some great articles come out today, which I want to talk about. The first one is distributed ledger technology. Then I want to talk about artificial intelligence. And the third article is also talking about cryptocurrency take up in terms of the countries that are mainly getting into cryptocurrency for one reason or another. So this one was from HSBC. They're the largest bank literally in the world by assets in Asia and Europe. And they came out with this article, which I thought was a great article, and I want to bring to your attention: distributed ledger technology in the capital markets. It is an absolute game changer, and this is what they called it. And obviously, when we talk about distributed ledger technology, we are talking about Ripple's technology, XRP, okay? They've got the best distributed ledger technology out there. Ripple have done literally about 80 million ledger transactions, which have thousands, ledger transaction will have thousands and thousands of transactions. And they've never had a hack. It's incredibly efficient, reduces costs and all sorts of things. So let's go through this article to save you reading it. I think it's a fascinating article, and I want to make sure that you guys look at this, and girls, because it's very important to understand this distributed ledger technology. So let's go down. So obviously got the contents, key debates, and this sort of thing. But it's going to be huge going forward. And HSBC are absolutely right what they're saying, right? They said distributed ledger technology in capital markets is multiplying fast and moving rapidly towards implementation. We're also already seeing the major banks in Australia, Westpac, ANZ, CBA, and NAB are using DLT, and most of it is with Ripple technology, okay? The distributed ledger technology itself, and I'll call it DLT, has amazing benefits. It reduces costs and risk. It basically can reconcile, it can do lots of different things, right? It is a consensus-based technology, but the thing is, it reduces the cost of people having to be at terminals and validating transactions and everything else, right? And they're basically saying within the next 2 to 3 years, a lot of banks, if they're smart and corporations, will be using DLT or Ripple's technology, so to speak, okay? And that's probably the gist of this. And they're saying pretty much in financial and capital markets, this is a huge game changer. And anyone that's not using DLT is going to be left way behind, okay? Not only that, is it decentralized, it's distributed, and basically it's very, very hard to hack the mainnet of DLT, right? So the article is excellent. If you have time to read it, please do. But the snapshot of this is basically it's consensus. It can be used across multiple users, multiple platforms. It supports blockchain, Bitcoin, the main first blockchain out there, but it also supports Ethereum virtual machines blockchain as well. The main things of distributed technology are seriously consensus, efficiency, resilience, and trust, access to a public ledger. Ripple can also do private ledgers for people. It can do tokens. It can transfer any type of asset on its distributed ledger, okay? The technology is incredible. They've also got smart contracts. Ripple can now, with their distributed ledger, do NFTs and all sorts of things, okay? In summary, DLT represents a combination of technologies and offers unique benefits in terms of consensus, efficiency, and security. The DLT umbrella now includes a wider variety of approaches and structures, and many are ideally suited to performing a range of connective issues within the capital markets. Now, we've seen within the capital markets, people can now issue bonds using DLT. They can issue, equities using DLT and trade finance and all sorts of things, okay, which reduces the cost of having humans at terminals and confirming things in different time zones and all sorts of things, right? Anything to do with the banks, the cost is still very high when we talk about currency, foreign currency, and yet Ripple can do it for literally like 1 out of 100% less costs, right? So the banks can't actually compete with Ripple, and that's the truth of it. And forget about Swift. It's an old and cluggy warship where Ripple is basically the speedboat, okay? It's as simple as that. the speedboat. And also, Ripple can basically transact all over the world, whereas the banks need a representative branch or another bank that does the transactions for them. And it just cannot compete with Ripple's DLT technology, okay? Particularly in payments, particularly in bank finance and all sorts of things. They've mentioned here DLT can streamline end-to-end value transfers, reducing costs, operational risk, and settlement periods. For example, Ripple's XRP ledger provides real-time cross-border settlements using tokens that represent central bank currencies. In foreign exchange, HSBC, in foreign exchange, they can do interbank and everything else. And HSBC, as I said, is one of the largest banks in the world that does their FX. They can even, they do literally $1 trillion of FX in a year. But, using DLT is going to make their business so much more efficient. Also in terms of bank finance, trade finance, syndicate lending, all sorts of things, right? And fund administration, which is the administration side, the debits and the credits and the reconciliation, but also custom identification, right? You do your AML checks, you know your client rules and your anti-money laundering checks, and literally, enhancing tax reporting, plus it's real time, okay? Real time live data. And this is exactly what HSB is talking about, right? They're saying that DLT can deliver incredible transformative applications in capital markets, right? And honestly, it's going to change the face of what we know as banking today, literally, with this incredible cryptocurrency technology, right? And, the thing is, the banks cannot compete with this unless they use distributed ledger technology themselves, right? And that's the bottom line, right? In summary, growing investments from a range of actors and pushing a range of applications in the market and provoking discussion about potential DLT, private ledgers were developed by specialists or via DLT partners are dominant, but other models remain in use. And that's what I said, Ripple can have a private ledger or a public ledger, depending on the client. And if the client asks for it, they can quite easily do a private ledger. So it also gets rid of all these old legacy systems. SWIFT is one of them that was developed in 1973. It still uses COBOL, the old coding language. Not many people know how to code anymore with COBOL. It's a plaster system, literally. It's been plastered up with plaster, and Band-Aids, literally, to try and compete with Ripple. But SWIFT is no competition for Ripple, okay, in terms of DLT. Ripple has interoperability between other blockchains and mainnets. And, it is cheap to use and fast and speedy and has security. That's the bottom line, right? It's an amazing story. As HSBC said, we have cost savings, risk reductions, revenue opportunities. We have compliance with AML and with Know Your Client rules. We can also within the system of Ripple have regulatory control, also identifying clients, having everything online rather than everything, in paperbacks or in paper folders and this sort of thing, right? So it is a fantastic story. And HSBC are basically saying this DLT system will, capture corporations and other banks in the next 2 to 3 years. The opportunities for Ripple are going to be huge, okay? And there's no doubt about that in my mind, right? Absolutely. And they're rightly in saying that this will reshape capital markets. And when we talk about capital markets, we're talking about money market, term deposits, we're talking about bonds, corporate bonds, we're talking about derivatives, swaps, options, FRAs, credit default swaps, all sorts of things, which will, I'll explain to you, going forward. But it's amazing, right? And the thing is, these applications of DLT will be used, excuse me, in the investment value chain, and it will be used across, corporates' technology systems so that the corporates become more competitive and reduce their costs and can provide a better service to the end client, okay? And this is effectively what they're saying. We expect DLT to begin restructuring capital market value chains within the next 2 to 3 years. It will pose fundamental questions for the roles of existing incumbents, i.e. the existing banks that are using old, clunky, old warship technology like SWIFT, okay, which is still using COBOL, which is a very old coding language from 1973. And honestly, I think these guys are spot on. The efficiency that comes with distributed ledger technology is unbelievable. The crypto technology of Ripple is incredible. It is mind-blowing. And honestly, people that don't use it will be so far behind the curve and they won't even be able to compete. Okay. And that's the bottom line, because if the banks reduce their costs in terms of transactions and costs of transactions and the speed of transactions, then they don't need to have risk limits or counterparty limits or anything like this, or risk people to monitor whether deposits hit their bank account or not after 3 or 4 days. No reconciliation would be because the thing is, the reconciliation of the ledger itself can do it quickly in real time straight away, right? And so therefore, if a bank has to provide financials to the central bank or whoever, the regulatory environment or the SEC, whatever, they can run off real-time reports straight away using distributed ledger technology. Whereas if they still use the old Swift type reports and every other system they have in their silos, it takes weeks and months to get everything together, and it's not real time. So have a read of this report. It is a very easy read, but it's straight on, and it's absolutely correct. And and it wouldn't surprise me if HSBC, one of the largest banks in the world that's doing extremely well in Asia, took up Ripple's technology, and I suspect that they probably are using Ripple's technology. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll do a couple of videos which I think are important. One in terms of artificial intelligence, and also there's a very good article by Gemini crypto adoption in different countries.